If we look at true economic reconciliation, what does that look like?
I believe, and I'm sure many other First Nations people believe, that that's our territory and our land. We could manage it and be stewards of the land better than anyone else can, really. It's our home.
Economic reconciliation takes everything into account that happened in our history, and it gives us a positive outlook moving forward, looking at what types of sustainable economic development can we get into, and what types of things do we think is okay for us to get into from a nation standpoint.
All of our businesses are encompassed within our development corporation, and so we have separated that from our nation, the chief and council component of the nation.
The potlatch rings on the poles, that was a symbol of that chief's wealth, how much he had given away. So if you had 4 potlatch rings there, you had 4 potlatches where he gave gifts to everybody. That was a measure of wealth back in the day, was how much you gave away. The model nowadays seems like how much you have, how much is in your bank account, how much is my bank account. Where back in the old ways, everybody looked after each other, so there wasn't, your social status was more known for how much you gave away than your personal wealth.
I think in the last number of decades and years that we've been displaced from the economy. I think what the BCAFN is doing is very important steps in order to not only re-engage economically with the federal and provincial governments, but as well as local, regional governments, and as well nation to nation between neighboring nations, that we work together.
Economic development is the cornerstone of what every First Nation should have. Before the reserve system, we had an economy, and we depended on the economy. Every society in the world depends on an economy. And before the Indian Act, before Indian reserves, we had our own traditional economies. But of course, today we have to survive on the contemporary economies of our region.
Economic sustainability is going to be our lifeline. It's going to work how we work with the industry, how we work with the land, and how we preserve our culture and practices.
The environment is a major issue for all of us, and making sure that anything that comes into the territory is actually environmentally friendly.
A lot of our nations have a lot in common with work ethic and wanting to do things in an environmentally sustainable manner.
I believe that us as a people, our identity is embedded in our cultural teachings, our language, and our ceremony. In order to move forward and to have that respect, we have to have some type of economic prosperity. But if we turn away from our teachings, then we're doing things in a wrong way.
Meaningful community engagement means removing all barriers that prevents people from participating, but it also means educating the community on what it is they're making a decision about.
What their goals are for their lives, what do they want to be involved in, what area interests them. A lot of times we're trying to find different ideas, but we really need to get that from the people, what they want to do.
Instead of just consulting them and showing up last minute and asking a question and then expecting them to have an opinion about it.
I think for all First Nations communities out there, they should have a comprehensive community plan and a detailed one.
If individual First Nation families are prospering, the community is prospering, that would mean prosperity for not only First Nations people, but as well as rural British Columbia.
And so the more our community members start coming up and believing in themselves and trusting themselves, the more we'll take ownership and take control of all of the things around us, including determining what kind of economic development we want to see and want to have, but also building economies within our nations.
People ask me about, what are Indigenous people, what can Indigenous people do to heal? And I always tell people it's not just Indigenous people that have to heal, society in general has to heal as well.